Well, the time of the year is now here. It's time for 13 reviews of Fright. They're officially back. And this time to kick off classic, we're doing Night of the Living Dead. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. I watched this movie maybe a couple months ago. Like, for the first time. It was one of those where it was like, had the intention to watch it, but never. Every time I was like, all right, I'll watch it eventually. It's kind of like a kick it to the curb kind of thing. So, yeah, I just never did. But finally, sat down and was like, all right, gotta watch it. And, for it being 68, it still holds up. For the most part. Now, before going into it, I knew a good chunk about it. Like, I knew, I knew, like, the end. I knew, like, certain things. I knew, like, certain scenes and stuff like that. So it was like, I wasn't going into it, like, completely and utterly blind. Like, I never saw, like, a clip ever. And because this is regarded as, like, one of the most important horror movies ever made, and, it kickstarted not only Romero's career, but also, like, zombies. And, yeah, it still holds up fairly well. So, if you're, like, the two people that don't know about this movie, break it down for you. It's basically, a couple of, a group of people barricade themselves in, like, kind of like this old home, I guess, like almost like a farmhouse kind of thing. And then a horde of, they really don't say zombies. They just they're like ghouls or something. And yeah, they're trying to survive. It's an hour and a half of them trying to survive while they got their own problems going on. And the most interesting thing about this is that they say, like, yeah, they're like, they like living dead. Like, yeah, they rose from the graves, but you really don't see that. And I understand, like, it was time period. They can really, do this kind of stuff. And this was like a lower budget movie. So they really had only a little bit to work with. That's why there's only like a couple of people here. And it's not until, like, the end where it's like, okay, this is everything that they wanted. And first thing off, performances I thought were pretty good. But the problem is that you really only care about main character, who's Ben. You really only care about him because he's the one, like, holding the fort down. He's the one being reasonable and rational while, you have a couple there, and the wife is just, like, looking after their kid who's been, like, unconscious the whole time. So even if you've never seen a horror movie before, like, something's going on with her. And the husband just kind of trying to be tough, but it's just like, no, you just sit down. The couple have a friend there who's kind of like, yeah, I'm just going with the flow. Like, you tell me to do something, I will do it. And then, of course, there's Barbara, who was just really useless. Really useless. A lot of screaming, a lot of just kind of fainting at times. And there was even a scene, like, I'm not going to lie, a scene where, like, she just kept, like, going crazy. And then Ben just had enough and, like, slapped her. And I was like, whoa, that just happened. Like, okay. I didn't know they were doing that, but all right. Now, even, like, with its low budget, and even in the, 68, the gore, while very minimal, is still pretty effective. Like, the scenes where you see them just, like, chewing on stuff, it's like, ugh. I was expecting it to be, like, hard, like clearly, like, like not plastic, but like like solid. Like, no, it's all like squishy and stuff. It's all gross. It's like, ugh. Even in black and white, it was like, that's gross. And they definitely evolved the zombies over time, but if it wasn't for this movie, zombies would have happened, but it would have been way later. I don't know. You really can't predict the future, but this still for the most part holds up. I will say its pacing is a little bit slow. But it's mainly, it's about the characters in this situation, where, there's this like, just this threat, this like impending doom, impending threat. And it doesn't seem to be going away because nobody knows what's going on, because, this is all brand new. It's not like today where we can easily point out, oh, it's zombies. Where back then it was like, yeah, what are these things? Like, what is this? So, it's also the drama on these characters, trying to figure out what to do. Like, do we stay and barricade ourselves, or do we try to go for freedom? Because the next town says like, oh, they're fine, when we all know it's not. But so it's all about the characters in this. And that's something I think some movies do very well, is that when they introduce something like outside, like very much a bottle film, they introduce something outside that's keeping all the characters in the bottle, and it's then focused on the characters, where it's like, yeah, you do kind of see, you do want to see these people survive. In this one, it was more like okay, other than Ben, I really don't care, for the most part. And the end was definitely oh, well, that is just absolute that's absolute bullshit right there. And a lot of people say like, oh, it has I'm not going to spoil it, but it's like message about racism, and it's like, that is exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what it is. So I won't spoil anything, but it is kind of one of those like, oh, it's a kick to the face, where it's like, ow, and that really stings. And yeah, it's just, this is a movie that just, for the most part, still works very well. And it's cool to see a movie that is, like almost 60 years old, still work, for the most part. They definitely, upgraded everything, especially like when Romero did like some like Dawn of the Dead and then Day of the Dead, where they gave the zombies, especially with Dawn, they gave it more of like personality, especially with Bud. But with this, it's just like, yeah, we start them out as just brainless and they don't know any better. And then we can maybe give them a little bit of thinking power, maybe a little bit of humanity. So yeah, if it wasn't for movies like this, or this one in particular, we wouldn't have zombies. I think that, we would have gotten zombies, just way later, like maybe in the 70s or maybe even into the 80s. But the fact that this is almost 60 years old, and this is like the, Romero was known for like being the godfather of zombies, which he very much was. And yeah, it just works. It works really well. This movie, it's so highly regarded for it being, the one that started it all. And looking past all of the, flaws of the time And also the budget stuff where it's like, yeah, you can barely afford to do this, you can barely afford to do this, but mainly like time period wise, this is still fairly, very, very good. I may give this like a low amazing because like I said, like it's pacing, but then of course it is time period. You know, a lot of those movies back then were a bit slower. So I'm not really going to penalize it for that, but yeah, it just sucks how Ben was the only rational one there, but yeah, still a pretty good movie, but you know, those little things get it to a low amazing, but it is still amazing on the fact that this is, you know, very original and it started it all. So yippee.